on the set. Stand by. In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Digitized. This week on our show, we'll take a look at the classic reborn and Jaws Unleashed. Furthering the Final Fantasy VII story, we'll look at Dirge of Cerberus and find out why I hate Microsoft so much. Today on Digitized.
Thank you, far too kind. Yeah. Ready? Let's go. Can I get an encore? Do you want more? Cook and roll with the Brooklyn boys. So for one last time, I need y'all to roll. Yeah. Now what the hell are you waiting for?
Hi, and welcome to Digitized. Let's jump right into some news.
Nintendo has announced they will launch their home console, the Wii, in November, 9 days before the PlayStation 3 launch. Coming in at only $250 a pop, the announcement launched Nintendo's share price up by 0.43%, with the overall Wii hype helping to project Nintendo's stock price by 60% since its announcement. Programs such as Wii Connect 24 and Wii Channels, a MySpace-type program, are also helping to bolster the excitement. Overall, Nintendo's excitement even won the #1 spot for excitability in our Episode 2 showcase. We'll have to wait and see just how good the Nunchuck controller can really perform.
Building even more off of Nintendo's announcement, a flurry of impressive sales figures from its redesigned DS handheld, the DS Lite, have spawned a resurgence in popularity as of late. However, a recent announcement from the company involves a feature that Nintendo was initially reluctant to make in an integral part of its consoles, the feature of online play. Nintendo's Wi-Fi connection service for the DS has surpassed the 2 million user mark in late August, according to Nintendo. Total individual game sessions have reached 70 million since the service's launch in mid-November 2005. Nintendo plans to continue its foray into online play with its upcoming console, the Wii. The next-gen system will feature Wii Connect 24, an online service that will send downloads and updates to the console, which will always be connected and therefore always on and ready to receive such updates and downloads. This should be a welcome feature that may help the Wii get off to a good start after its release.
In true monopolistic fashion, Microsoft unveiled lately new peripherals built around its next operating system, Windows Vista. The company released many new keyboard and mice combinations ranging from entry-level system builder setups all the way to high-end wireless ones, including Bluetooth-enabled functionality, remotes, built-in rollerballs, etc. One of the neat new setups is a new desktop keyboard and mouse with backlighting that detects ambient light. Microsoft also announced other peripherals such as a webcam featuring a 2-megapixel resolution, touting it as one of the best webcams out on the market. The wireless entertainment Desktop 8000 really caught our eye. Look for these peripherals to hit shelves this fall.
Organizers of the 2007 Online Game Development Conference have announced that its inaugural event will be held from May 10 to 11, 2007 at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel in downtown Seattle. The conference is slated to offer a wealth of technical and creative information for the interactive game development community, and specific speakers are expected to be announced over the next few months. Additionally, the event is designed to offer a wide array of future-oriented answers to the challenges and opportunities facing online game developers, and will be going with a general theme of Connect Your Brain. The online gaming market is expected to quadruple in size in the North American market alone, going from $1.1 billion spent in 2005 to to $4.4 billion by 2010. For more information, including registration details for those interested in attending the event, you can visit the official website at www.ogdc2007.com.
Microsoft has recently announced plans to re-release its Xbox 360 in Japan as a bare-bones version prior to the PS3 and Wii releases. The Xbox 360 core machine, or the Lite version, here in the States is not sold in Japan. Japanese gamers had to deal with the high prices of the fully loaded version, and as a result, the 360 is failing miserably in sales. To boost those numbers, the core system will be re-released in Japan for $80, cheaper than the full version. Overall, this is just another example of how Microsoft has really neglected the Japanese market. This time by not giving them fair share of options, and, well, they suffered the consequences.
To add to that, Microsoft has updated its Xbox 360 backward compatibility list, this time adding 39 new games and updating support for 9 more. That brings the total number of Xbox games playable on the Xbox 360 up past the 250 mark. When the last update to the list was made in June, it added only 27 games to the list, a half dozen of which were Japanese-specific Xbox games. That update was released in the wake of some controversial comments from Microsoft VP Peter Moore, who was quoted as saying that nobody really cares about backwards compatibility anymore. As with most backward compatibility updates, there are a mix of big-name games such as Burnout 3, the upcoming LEGO Star Wars 2, and True Crime Streets of LA, and some lesser-known titles. For a complete list of Xbox 360 backwards compatible games, you can visit their website at xbox.com.
Gateway's Computers has announced they're shafting their CEO once again for a new one. The #2 home computer maker in the nation announced they've fired their latest CEO and hired a new one, having now gone through 5 CEOs in a 6-year period. Talk about a board of directors having absolutely no clue what the heck they're doing. Gateway lost $12.3 million in the first quarter of 2006 and $7.7 million in the second. J. Edward Coleman takes the helm this year, joining the company from Arrow Electronics. Hopefully, he'll be able to turn them around. So why did we mention Gateway? Gateway used to have a great gaming machine lineup, among other things, so hopefully Coleman can bring them back to the promised land.
A federal judge recently granted an industry trade group's request for a preliminary injunction preventing a Louisiana law from going into effect, according to some court records. Signed in June, the law sought to limit minors' access to violent games using the framework of existing obscenity statutes. According to the text of the law, it's illegal to sell, rent, or lease a game to a minor if it meets 3 specific conditions. Those being that if the, quote, average person were to find that the game appeals to the minor's morbid interest in violence, that the game depicts violence in a manner offensive to standards of the adult community with regard to what is suitable to minors, and that the game taken as a whole lacks literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. In other words, a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo. The Entertainment Software Association quickly filed a lawsuit shortly after the law went into effect, and the federal judge reviewing the suit ruled against the state law in nearly every argument, citing previous cases where past judges have ruled video games protected under the freedom of speech. It must also be noted that this topic does not cover or include sexually explicit content, which is a separate issue not granted the same free speech protections.
Well, while I'm obviously Microsoft bashing here, Microsoft has recently announced its pricing strategy for Windows Vista. The software maker announced prices between $100 to $259 range for its 6 flavors 11. But wait, that's $100 to $250 per the upgrade only. The non-upgrade versions will be between $200 and $400 each. For the average gamer, even the low-end amounts are out of this world. Heck, for the average anyone who's anywho, that's a lot of money. Seems that Microsoft can't even learn from their own history of antitrust lawsuits. Hello, McFly! These prices are way too high!
And finally, to wrap it up, a federal judge struck down a Minnesota law that would fine minors attempting to buy games rated M for mature or AO for adults only. The judge found the law to be an unconstitutional violation of free speech rights, adding that the state failed to provide evidence that exposure to violent games causes harm to minors. Minnesota's Attorney General Mike Hatch said that he will be appealing the judge's decision to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, stating that the act really only makes sure that parents are involved in the decision of whether their children should play violent or sexually explicit video games. It would then be up to the discretion of the parents whether or not they would buy the games for their kids. Yeah, right. This subject, however, is still wide open to debate and interpretation that might never get completely resolved.
All right, all you nub jobs out there, stick around. Reviews are coming up next.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
And welcome back to the show. I'll start off the mix with a PC New Classic review called Tropico. Viva el Presidente! The last episode of the show, my review of Port Royal 2 took you to the Caribbean during the era of the 16th century. This time around, the region is the same, but fast forward to the 20th century. Now let's take a look at the unique city building game, Tropico Mucho Macho. You take on the role of El Presidente as you rise to power of the relatively unknown Caribbean island nation of Tropico. Your task? To rule autonomously as you see fit. The Mucho Macho version combines the original game Tropico plus the expansion pack called Paradise Island, and puts a lot of fun into the traditional city building genre. Considering the fact this game is over 4 years old, the graphics are still excellent and crisp and are really a pleasure for the eye to look at with the 3/4 overhead view similar to the SimCity series. A few minor imperfections and not too colorblindness friendly in some aspects, but overall I would give the sights an A- grade. Now the music is among my favorite of any video game. It adds a flair of mix of Hispaniola meets El Caribe. Additionally, the sound effects of the towns you build and the island surroundings do an excellent job of bringing the game to life. The sounds are nearly perfect and among the strengths of this game, and so get an A+. The gameplay is relatively easy to get into, and the tutorial is very good at getting you into all the various levels of play with the various tutorial missions. There's also quite a bit of humor injected into the game, which adds a nice flair. Some things can get tedious at times, but it doesn't detract from the game too much. Gameplay gets an A-. The game is very easy to control with a variety of keyboard shortcut commands to supplement the mouse controls. No complaints here. Controls gets an A. There seems to be enough variety and challenges combined with different goals that give a game a decent dose of replayability. There's plenty of flexibility in giving you freedom to govern in completely different ways in the same missions. Depending on your attention span, these missions may or may not start to get old, so give replayability a B. Now, Tropico can be addictive, but probably not enough that you'll lose too much sleep. It's a fun game to play, and the addictiveness gets a B-. Overall, this game is probably one of those hidden gems if you're into the city building genre. If you can pick this game up for under 20 bucks, consider it a good find. Overall, I rate Tropico Mucho Macho a B.
All right, man, that's a good. I love that game. That was so fun. I remember the Tropico back in the day. Good stuff,
Yeah.
man, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
El Presidente.
Yeah, I mean, it's the music is, yeah, I gotta say it again. The music's pretty cool, you know. And I mean, after you hear it enough, it's more of that Latino flair that you got.
Exactly.
You got in there, and that's one of the strengths. That you know, it's all Spanish songs really, so they can get going in your head. But no, the gameplay is pretty cool, and there's a lot of the city building things that you won't find in SimCity.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you explained it perfectly with the Fidel Castro-esque.
I mean, that's the character that's like on the box with the cheesy grin and his Cubano cigarro. So.
Yeah, yeah. For my first review, we'll take a look at the sci-fi strategy game, Dark Star 1. In DS1, you take the role of a son who just recovers from his father's death, only to find your father left you with more than what you bargained for. Your father was a great scientist, working on the construction of a ship that allows for organic upgradability. The ship is the Dark Star 1 prototype, and also the epicenter of your father's death. The game is centered around the main character cruising around the ginormous galaxy created in the game. Your father left you the DS1 prototype, to which you learn to navigate throughout the game. The asteroids, other ships, effects, etc. are all visually appealing, and with the ability to fully gank them out in your video card setting, I give the sights for the game an A. Other than the repetitive character dialogue for each trade station you reach, the voice work is actually pretty well done. The ship, space, weapons, etc. are superbly done as well, and surround sound is enabled, giving this score a B+. The learning curve for DS1 is about an hour, only because the introduction of the story plays out for that long. The HUD is done supremely well, and commands are easy to place and use with a standard keyboard. The game does seem to get repetitive along the way, as you really only have a couple options to do throughout. Search for your dad's killer, trade, kill things, and do them all over in either an evil or good way. And so the gameplay only really gets a C-. The story is one we've heard a million times. The only unique thing is the Dark Star itself. It is a really imaginative idea of leveling up a ship based on organic/relic items on top of the run-of-the-mill equipment upgrades. But it's really not enough to save the story score, and I give it a B-. As touched on briefly before, control of the game is a cinch, and the game does a fantastic job of showing you how to control everything as you come across different scenarios throughout. A+. The universe in this game is segregated into sectors you can warp to if you're in range, and the different races and economical trading is enough to keep you playing for days leisurely. But it's not enough to meet the addiction factor, and I rate it with only a B. Overall, I love this type of game, and that really swings the vote for me. It's easy to learn all the detail of the game, and it's not lacking in that as well. So overall, Dark Star 1 receives a B+.
All right, so.
What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the, it looked pretty interesting. It looked like a business sim too.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's got this huge economical system on top of being able to hunt down your father's killer, which is pretty cool. The only thing is, you'll see in the clips we show, the character dialogue at the trade station, she always says, "How can I help you? You're cleared for docking." No matter where you're at, the same girl, same dialogue, everything. So that kind of silly at times, but what can you say?
Yeah. Legos and Lucas. A seemingly odd combination for a successful video game, but it's one that has worked well in the past and once again seems to continue to work well with the recent release of LucasArts' LEGO Star Wars 2. The first game in the series focused on the adventures of Star Wars Episodes 1 through 3, and now the second release takes you back to the originally released movies of Episodes 4, 5, and 6. Don't let the childhood toy title fool you into passing up the chance to play it. Chewbacca ripping people's arms off is enough to keep you entertained. The graphics of the game are clear and sharp and done excellently. My only complaint would have to be the occasional corner or two that the camera angle doesn't quite allow you to see. That's hardly an issue here, and give the sights an A grade. The sounds of the game are superb. From all the classic Star Wars sound effects and music to the really cool click-clack effects of Legos being put together, this game is a pleasure to listen to. Unfortunately, the characters don't speak, but they only mumble, much in the way that The Sims spoke their gibberish. Still, I love the overall sounds of the game, and I give it an A. The gameplay is very easy to get into, with a lenient learning curve and a decent pop-up tutorial style instructions. The game is just a blast to get into, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Gameplay gets a B+. Now, who in this day and age doesn't know the story of Star Wars? The game basically follows the storyline of episodes 4, 5, and 6, but in LEGO form. Even with this familiar predictability, the story is forever classic, and I give it an A. LEGO Star Wars 2 is available for multiple gaming platforms, and I happened to play the PC version and was completely satisfied with the ease of the controls and the ability to switch the play using to either a joystick or a keyboard. Keymapper will even let you customize the joystick as well. Give the controls an A. Now, as for the replayability factor, there's a decent amount in this game. There's a wide variety of characters that you can play as, each with their own special fighting abilities, not to mention both a campaign mode and a free play mode of the game. Plenty of secrets to be found as well. Replayability gets a B. While the game can be a bit addictive, I know I found it eating away some time at a fairly rapid rate. That addictiveness level might drop down a little once you've beaten the game, despite the free play mode. Addictiveness gets a B. So to sum it up, the lowdown on the game is this. Despite the plastic toy theme, you're literally going to have a blast playing LEGO Star Wars 2. What I really think it will hinge on for the gamer is how long this game will last on his or her active playlist, long after they've beaten the whole game. With that, I feel compelled to give this game an overall rating of a B. Oh yeah, and may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
Had to end on the cheesy pun.
That was awesome.
No, I mean, this game, I think it might scare people. Why are we doing a kiddie game? It's not really a kiddie game.
I didn't think so at all. I remember seeing it, watching the first week of football, and they showed it on football games. I think people find it highly amusing, and I'm glad we did it. You know, I love Chewbacca ripping people's arms off.
And the little pop as it comes off there.
Exactly.
I mean, it plays just as well as any other 360-degree view game out there.
Yeah, it's great. It really is.
Don't let the name fool you.
Don't let it fool you. And finally, we'll wrap things up with Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. Dirge begins 3 years where Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children, leaves off, and you assume the role of Vincent. Some crazy new things are happening, and you've been tasked to keep the peace in this new 3D gunfighter. The backgrounds in this game are amazing. I especially enjoyed the new character designs and the full motion video cutscenes. That really helps out the score and propels the sights to an A+. Conjointly with the sights are the sounds. Again, another ace in the hole. Coming fully loaded with surround sound, giving you the 1-2 with the weapons, realty, and the character voiceovers, the sounds get an A+ as well. Gameplay really slumps, however. First off, you get 3 main flavors of the gun only throughout the entire game, which you pick up at the very beginning of the game. And there's no real upgrade path to them. The interaction throughout the level is poor as well. Different side mission layouts really hinder this game, and I give the gameplay only a D+. The story does further the Final Fantasy VII legend that Square is trying to put together here to increase their sales. But it's really sad, though, that 99% of gamers really won't stick around to finish it due to the horrific gameplay. Nonetheless, the story is still superb and deserves an A. Replayability is extremely low, again, due to the horrific gameplay. Seems like every level is the same thing, absolutely nothing new, once you played the first 3 stages. The rest are repetitive, and replaying the game gets an F. I think our first ever F. Overall, get this if you want to simply play a mediocre game, just to simply learn more about the Final Fantasy VII storyline. If you don't, screw it, and just read about it online. It will save you some time. This game gets a D. Absolutely disappointing.
Really?
I was so pissed off.
Yeah. So with the original Final Fantasy VII, the Advent of Children.
Advent Children is the movie that came out last year, Final Fantasy VII. It furthered the original game that came out a decade ago, its story.
So they're nothing alike, really.
Well, what's happened is you're supposed to be Vincent, and you're supposed to carry on the story 3 years after, which it does, and the story is still carried. I won't ruin it for anybody. It carries on. It's a great story. Yeah. Read about it online. It's a horrific game. It really
Bummer,
is.
man.
Oh man, it starts off the first 3 levels fantastic, and then it just dies, and you play the first level. It seems like a repetitive level over and over again. So it really stinks. And we only posted the first 3 levels because it's in the videos because it's just junk.
That's about it.
That's the only inventive thing throughout the whole
Final
game.
Fantasy has about 6,000 other titles to it. So
well, that's what I'm saying.
You're gonna find one that you like if you don't like this one.
Yeah, that's why I said Square's trying to do something with Final Fantasy VII and portray its legend a little further to increase sales because their other games are crap now. So
Bummer.
yeah.
All right, don't go anywhere. Previews are coming up next.
まもなく作戦エリアです。目標前方に確認。
Hey, welcome back. Time for the previews. Take it away, JT.
All right, jumping into some salty nuts. Jaws Unleashed, My Majesco, gets set to invade the underwater sanctity of your PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 2 in September. Instead of putting you in mortal danger of becoming fish food, you will actually play as the great white that was made famous by the 1975 movie Spectacular. The game is touted as being exceptionally bloody. And how could you possibly create a game about a serrated-toothed predator without spilling a little blood in the process? As you have various mission objectives that deal with evading humans to outright chomping them down. If you're looking for a cleaned-up video game about fish, you'll probably want to avoid this game and instead dig out that old Atari 2600, find a copy of Activision's Fishing Derby. As for Jaws Unleashed, the graphics look sharp, and it has an interesting concept. However, depending on the price point, variety of gameplay, and after playing a demo, you may find this game to be only worth renting.
You know, I really wish you could rent like PC games, but I'm digging the fact that they didn't tell it from a human perspective, and they're really telling it from the shark perspective. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, I thought just a totally unique and interesting concept.
It'll be great to chomp on Mr. Holland's opus. You know,
yeah, that's right. And close encounter this. Right on.
Exactly. My next ball buster, Faces of War for the PC. Now, usually Justin reports on games having to do with World War II or strategy, etc. But I got into the mix this time after I saw the game. Faces of War is another strategic game based on World War II with a more tactical edge. You take control of one of 3 armies, the Germans, the Allies, or the Ruskies. The sound in the game is amazing, taking the battle to air, land, or by sea. Take control over an entire army, or get more into the small details and control vehicles, squads, single vessels, etc. themselves. The effects, control, story, and all the other categories really are impressive to boot, and I rate this bag of nuts worth buying. What do you think?
Well, you know, in all the World War II games that are out there, I wasn't quite sure what to expect from it, but it's pretty unique. It has like a Command and Conquer sort of Rome Total War sort of thing. I liked it.
Yeah, and I really like how they get down to the level of detail, and you get the camera angles are beautiful. It's one thing I think a lot of other ones lack that this doesn't is it's polished.
Yeah.
Right? It's really polished.
I mean, hey, there's even some Mein Leben and some German accents going on.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Gotta have that.
Exactly.
All right. All right, blue ball it up. All right, I'll finish our preview section this week with Call of Juarez. Got an itchy trigger finger there, partner? And take yourself back to the American Old West in Ubisoft's latest first-person shooter, Call of Juarez. With an expansive storyline that lets the player be two different characters whose goals actually conflict with one another, and a gaming world environment that is highly interactive and manipulative, Call of Juarez ventures into a fairly unexplored genre of territory. Beyond the basic FPS run and gun, there's also various ways to solve getting by different obstacles that are presented in the game, such as allowing the player to move objects for climbing, start realistic fires that spread to nearby flammable materials, or just use different strategic styles to get past various enemies. The graphics, the game's AI, and especially the sounds are said to be polished and well done in general. Dig into Call of Juarez a bit more, and you just may find it worth buying, gringo. Hey, what do you think of that, Esse?
Worth buying, gringo.
Yeah, no,
That's great.
Interesting concept, you know.
Yeah, I like the interactive environments. I don't think, you know, as we're getting into this new age, enough games are really interacting with their environments. We're going to see a complete change in how designers and programmers are doing this in games with Crisis, which is coming out soon. But until then, you know, we're not really seeing that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, one interesting thing I want to say for Call of Juarez is the fact that the sharpshooter of the game, when you're in a duel with multiple enemies, time slows down. And you actually get to react at normal speed, but time slows down. That kicks tail. Let's just leave it at that.
Tail.
Yeah. I won't say anything beyond that.
All right. Well, hey, stick around. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We'll start off with the business of gaming. We do this every episode. It's a good time. Good time. We'll talk about something we briefly touched on with Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. Square's need to try and make some increased profits here. I personally don't like where they've gone in the direction of the series. After 9, I think they've really kind of downgraded. as a company with how they're storytelling the series. And I think their business model is slumped, and that's why we're seeing a bunch of the Final Fantasy movies coming out, especially in Japan. We're starting to see this whole, you know, try and resurrect the series in different ways. Dirge of Cerberus, which was a horrible attempt at a game just to further a story and try and sell that. That's why it's a completely different story, really, than the Cloud Legend. And they just tried to really gank it, and I thought that was completely inappropriate that they went off on this Vincent.
Let me ask you though, do you think it's still popular enough to continue? And if so, how many more games do you think we'll see coming out?
Well, what they should have done, honestly, was they should have Final Fantasy VII been about a decade, okay? The game. Final Fantasy Advent Children, the movie, was absolutely brilliant. It was wonderfully written, wonderfully edited.
Talk about that for those of us that aren't too savvy to what you're talking about.
It's just a CGI. It's like, you remember Final Fantasy Spirits Within? It was another Final Fantasy movie. It was crap, honestly. it didn't follow anything. So what Advent Children did is it actually was like part 2 of the first game, Final Fantasy VII. Okay. So now, what they should have done was told the second part of Final Fantasy VII, left it. Maybe there's still more to Cloud to tell. That's fine. But don't do it in the parts of telling kind of a side story of Vincent and really not, you know. I think Final Fantasy VII is Cloud, and to break away from the series really disappointed me, you know. So what do you think about Square's need to increase sales? I mean, Final Fantasy XI hasn't done what they thought it would, at least here in the States. I didn't really look up, or I don't really have experience to talk about how it is doing in Japan. Yeah. It's not doing anything here in the States. They also did it in coordination with the hard drive for PlayStation 2, which wasn't a good move as far as sales numbers. It still got, you know, made up its money, but it's not. It didn't blow away like, you know, Final Fantasy VII back, you know, a decade ago did.
Well, maybe if they come out with, you know, you've got 11. Maybe if they come out with 1 or 2 more and they continue to decline, maybe then they'll get the message. Maybe they should try something else.
Yeah, I mean, they should try something else. It's pretty ridiculous. So. My prediction, I think they have seen with Dirge of Cerberus that this is junk. You know, great story, really bad game. Really bad game. We're starting to see that from Square, by the way. Square's starting to put out some junk, in my opinion. I've been a big fan of Square, you know, since way back in the day. Who hasn't? Final Fantasy 1, 2. I mean, come on. Yeah. Legend of Mana and all that stuff. My prediction is this. It's simple. What they should do is let 7 die for a while. They let it die, and then they blasted the market to increase sales because they're slumping. Let it die for a very long time. It's like Star Trek. I think the Star Trek should die for a very long time, if not forever.
Yeah. But
let it die, and then come back with Cloud's next chapter in his story. Prediction is they won't. They'll keep trying to blast this Final Fantasy VII. 12 will come out, and they'll be forced to let it die, just because it won't be doing. Cerberus killed it. So okay. Next, why I hate Microsoft. First, what's your opinion on Microsoft? What do you think about them?
Well, let's see. They're a small little family-owned company, aren't they?
Yeah.
Microsoft. What do I think about them? I think I'm kind of neutral right now. I mean.
Okay, why?
Because I don't know. I see what they're trying to do, and they're just. I don't know. I can't put my finger on why.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe they're monopolistic?
Inherently, yes, but within the limits of free markets. I think there's some, but I think that there's a lot of things.
You don't think they engage in antitrust practices?
Comcast Cable is monopolistic.
Comcast Cable, I hate Comcast.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that sounded so negative. I dislike Comcast very much.
Yeah.
I mean, they have great features, but Comcast is a great company with what the products they offer. They're extremely overpriced. And they gouge the market. Yeah. Same with Time Warner on the East Coast. They gouge the markets. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Do you believe they participate in antitrust practices? Yes or no?
No.
Why?
Because they haven't been really.
You don't think that Microsoft pushes out other operating system manufacturers by the way they integrate their operating system with all these other applications they do. Internet Explorer, for example. Internet Explorer is integrated so much into Windows that they have now said that Internet Explorer, Windows Media Player, cannot be segregated from the operating system because of its integrated so much. Do you think that's is an antitrust practice?
I don't think it is. I think it's just the evolution of the market. I mean, there's some things I think that are antitrust-like, but you know, wait to see what the courts
Why is
do.
Firefox able to be installed in Windows and be uninstalled equivocally easy, and Internet Explorer is not, and Windows Media Player is not, and everything crashes if you try to uninstall these things?
Yeah.
Why does that happen? That's why I hate Microsoft.
Yeah.
I dislike Microsoft.
I don't think I quite have the savvy or
and I accept that. I think another reason is that
that's why I'm neutral. I think more
okay.
So. But
let me ask you this, and we'll close this section up and get to your socks. Let me ask you this: do you think it's fair that you should have to pay $400 to get an operating system that does all the functionality you want as a gamer? Do you think it's fair?
Are you talking about the
I'm talking about Windows Vista and the article we featured in the news. Do you think that's fair?
I don't think that the price should be that high. But of course, I don't like paying as high a price for cable as I am.
How much do you pay for a game? A brand new game that comes out, and let's just talk the current systems: Xbox, PS2 or PS3. Let's just talk next gen. How much is the highest brand new game going to be?
We're speculating?
No. We're saying how much is a brand new game today on the market? How much do you pay for a PC game? 50 bucks. Exactly.
Yeah. I wouldn't go much over that.
How much is the operating system on the PlayStation 2, the Xbox? How much did you have to pay for that?
The consoles themselves?
The console operating system
yeah, those
behind
are
the scenes.
a few $100.
Zero. You're right. The console itself is a few $100. The operating system on it is zero.
Oh, I see.
You don't pay jack. I think you should have thought to pay for an operating system on your machine. I'm not saying that because the way the market is set up, there are OEM system builders. They have to have operating system, Linux, something to run them. I'm not saying you don't have to pay something. The reason I brought up the games is because your games pay 50 bucks. They're making up for having no cost in the back end. They're not as complicated as Windows, and that's a whole nother story. They're not as complicated as Linux or any. There's a reason for that. They're not as complicated as OS 10. But when you don't have to pay for the operating system that runs the Xbox, PlayStation, and as a gamer, you're doing just as much with your PC, I can justify having to pay $50 to $100 for that operating system, personally. I cannot justify, to do all the stuff I wanted to do. Yeah. I cannot justify now paying $400 for the fully loaded Windows Vista to do some things I want to do as a gamer. It's not fair in my eyes. It's running the market because you own the market, in my eyes. It's not. They got in trouble for this. The lawsuits were that they were driving out competition, one, because they were fully loaded on the machines to begin with, and they had these, quote unquote secret deals with OEMs to fully, integrate their systems at dirt cheap price at the very beginning of this whole charade, decades ago. Now that they're able to blast these numbers and to just
hopefully
gank them out.
If they are still involved in antitrust practices, hopefully our courts will be good enough to find those and to bring up charges. What do you think? Do you think the American legal system can do that? No comment. All right.
We're done.
We're done.
And I probably didn't say it right. I feel like Microsoft is doing their consumers an injustice, and I believe that they are participating in antitrust practices with how they integrate their software with their operating system, and I don't agree with it. And so that's why I don't like Microsoft.
All right.
Anyway, your stocks. What do we got on your stock tips here? We featured a couple. We got a ticker running.
Do we have time?
We've got about 3 minutes.
Okay.
We got time.
Now, as far as the general stocks here go, and the group of companies that we've been following, there's actually been an upswing in most of these here. So So we look at Activision. Now, we've been tracking them probably about once every few weeks.
And because they've got a couple of new games coming out soon.
Activision. They're down a little from the last episode that we had. Okay. They're down a little, but they're virtually the same. The same price. I mean, we're talking like 7 cents difference.
Okay.
Down.
So what is their trading price right now?
Right now is $13.92 a share.
Okay.
It's down from $13.99 from the last episode.
Right, you're absolutely right.
So,
Okay.
Okay, AMD.
How's AMD doing after the merger? You know, and they've recently announced some more things. You know, talked about more of their 4x4 platform. How are they doing? They're going up, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They're still going up. They now in June they were at a level, and then they dipped down in July, and now they've been going back up, and now they've surpassed that June price right now.
And they also announced ATI just announced their Radeon R platform, which is their next video card. I don't know if it's their next as much as their sort of beefed up Radeon platform. I haven't really read into it much. So that's
ATI,
probably why AMD's risen as well.
ATI continues to go up.
Go figure.
They're way up over their June price.
Oh yeah, I mean AMD buying out is the best
up.
thing ever for them. So.
It is. And let's see our other A list. There's Atari. Why
the
bother?
penny stock.
Yeah, why bother?
Did they go down or up since last time?
Oh, they've gone up 12 cents. You know, which is about almost 100% of their. Now they're at like 76 cents.
And we mentioned last time about them being warned by NASDAQ if they're low. After some more research, we kind of actually found out that they've been removed from the composite, and that they're actually they're being traded on I can't remember, but the inactive composite for NASDAQ, which is so they were warned and taken off.
Yeah.
And now they won't be put back on until they grow above $1. So and they're at what 70-something cents?
76.
76. So it's a bummer.
Yep. Well, let's see to round those out. EA is going up. They're up like over $3. They're at 54.45 a share.
Way too much for EA, in my opinion.
Yeah. So. Microsoft is they're up a little bit. They're at 25.93. And God, how many times have they split over the years? I'm sure tons.
Well, and you got to think about Microsoft. If you remember the Big Bang, I remember Microsoft being at 120 before the blow. Well, I guess for that matter, Yahoo used to be at 398 per share. So anyway.
Nasty.
So how are we going to finish this off? Who do we got?
All right, finish. We got Sony. They're one of the few that have dropped down a little bit.
Probably due to the PlayStation 3 being delayed in Europe.
Yeah.
They simulcastly touted that Europe, Japan, and U.S. would have the same launch date, and they've now confirmed that the U.K. will be delayed. So.
All right. Yes.
They're
not down a lot. They're at 42.09. I'd right there.
No one cares about Europe. That's why they're down just a little bit. That's a horrible thing. Never mind.
Europe. All right. Take-Two, which we like to track because they've been so involved in so many lawsuits and what have you.
And they're crazy up, right? I mean, from last time they were at 9 last time, and they're at 11 something right now.
They're at 13.62.
Holy shock.
They're actually now up higher than they were in June, and then after that they like 2 or 3 different lawsuits during the summer, or I should say, not lawsuits, but investigations by the
crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
by the SEC. All right, stick around for our showcase where we look at the top 10 best and worst video game movies of all time.
All right, welcome back. Today in our showcase, we're going to feature the top 10 best and worst video game themed movies of all time. Me and Justin here.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit pale right now.
Feeling a bit pale.
Yeah, I just
All
feel
right.
like a basket case, you know.
I bet, man.
Do you want to test my stool for me there?
Exactly.
All right.
All right, coming in at number 10, worst video game themed movie of all time, Tomb Raider 2. Now, as much as we all like Angelina Jolie, she just didn't cut it in this second rendition. Any
Now-
thoughts?
Well, why'd they make a sequel?
Good thought.
You know?
Coming in at number 9, Cloak and Dagger. Quite possibly one of the geekiest video game movies of all time. Almost one of the worst.
I vaguely remember that. It was Dabney Coleman, right?
Exactly.
And it was like an Atari 5200 game or something like that? Ouch.
Ouch. Coming in at number 8, this lovable Nintendo characters just don't quite cut it when it comes to the movie screen. Pokemon.
Why? That's all I have to say.
It was designed around kids, animated, but on our show, it's the worst. All right, number 7, Game Over. Now, this is a Yasmin Bleeth movie where she came in and didn't really do a whole lot, and it's just junk.
I don't remember that movie at all. So,
In the form you're currently in, it's hard to imagine you remember much. Number 6 of our worst movies ever, Double Dragon. Not much to say about that. Number 5, Super Mario Brothers. Now this John Leguizamo flick, and
Bob Hoskins and Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper was in
It's
it.
horrible. You know, I got a story with this game. Okay, with this movie. I'm sorry. We went to the drive-in. This was supposed to be some huge summer spectacular movie. You know, we went to the drive-in and we had our 40 ounces of malt liquor with us, and we ended up we came around. They said you guys are going to have to either pour those out or leave. And the movie was so bad, we felt we just wanted to keep our $1.59 Old English 800, so we left. It was that bad.
Well, good call. It's in my top 5. Number 4, Alone in the Dark. Now this director also did our number 3, so let's just jump to that. Number 3, House of the Dead. House of the Dead and Alone in the Dark are pretty much mirror images of each other on the crap scale, and that's why they're 3 and 4. Coming up on number 1, number 2, Street Fighter. Now this had a lot of big names in it, especially Van Damme as the main character, but this bad boy just did not cut it. And coming in as the number 1 worst video game themed movie of all time, any guesses?
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat 2, Annihilation. Now this just reeks of absolute crud. Nuts. Alright, now time to move on to the 10 best video game movies of all time. Coming in at number 10, Wing Commander. Now this bad boy might have featured the pretty boy, Freddie Prinze Jr., but it was actually a really good flick, and thus it makes number 10. Coming in at number 9, we got the old Wonder Year boy,
The Wizard.
the Wizard,
Ouch.
as Fred Savage decides to take on a little Super Mario Bros. 3. Coming in at number 8, Silent Hill. Now this bad boy picks up where the game left off as far as telling you what happens in the movie, and is definitely one of the best. Number 7 might get a little old for you noobs out there, The Last Starfighter.
I do remember this movie, and it was pretty good actually. Even though
I
wasn't-
agree.
Yeah, I was a
Fantastic.
kid when it was out, but
Ah, well, still one of the best. Coming in at number 6, Resident Evil. Now Resident Evil doesn't really follow the story plot of the game, but it still is good enough to make my number 6. Coming in at number 5, a sequel to number 6, Resident Evil 2. Now this game really upped its predecessor and did a fantastic job of furthering the side movie plot story that Resident Evil introduced. Number 4, one of my favorite personal comedic video game based movies, Grandma's Boy. Now this bad boy features a video game maker who's trying to come up on his own with a game called Demonic. Now you'll soon find that the drugs and paraphernalia might be a little too much for your child, but it's a great adult flick. Next, number 3, is a little flick we like to call War Games. It has to do with a teenager coming up who breaks into the government database and has a little game of a war with the supercomputer. Any thoughts, Justin?
I liked the movie. It was really good, and it was supposed to take place in Oregon. And shall we play a game was what the computer.
Shall we play a game? All right, number 2 on my list, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. This game features just beautiful CGI scenes and a whole lot of action. And it's absolutely fantastic the way they lace back in Sephiroth. And the number 1 best video game movie of all time, paying homage to the classics, Tron. Absolutely fantastic. Justin, Tron.
I loved it. It was great. You know, I remember the video game when it first came out in the arcade. That might be dating myself a little bit, but we're talking early 80s here. Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, very good, very good.
The mainframe, even though we're talking the computer's probably, what, about 4 megabits?
Did all that stuff.
Yeah.
4 megabits. All right, that about does it for our showcase. Stick around. We'll feature the gaming clip of the week. All right, that about wraps up this episode of Digitized. We'd like to thank TVCTV. We'd like to also thank ConceptionX Studios, Darkwing Productions, and everyone else involved in this production.
Especially this styrofoam head.
Especially our wonderful styrofoam head
that we just found.
All right, take it easy. We'll see you next time.
Stay where you belong, in my memories.
I will never be a memory.
Lose control, increasing